Hi there and welcome back to my channel for all my returning subscribers. And if you are new here, welcome. My name is Monica and thank you so much for stopping by. I make videos here on the internet about my life, what I'm going through, and yes, I also talk about my experience as a Jehovah's Witness. So today's video is going to be a special one because I'm doing this to reintroduce myself and explain to you guys why I left, how I feel about the religion, and what inspired me to do this video. So why I decided to do this video is because throughout 2022 I was doing this module. So for those who don't know, I'm currently studying, and one of the modules that I had to do was called decoloniality, Africana, thought, discourse, and critique. I hope I got it right. But basically the module was teaching us about decoloniality, colonialism, how it's still around within society right now, and what we can do about it essentially. So before we get into all of that, I just want to do a quick update or introduction about myself so you can just get to know me a bit better. So I was born a Jehovah's Witness. I was in the religion throughout my whole life, and I left in 2017, and I've been out ever since. I didn't formally leave. So for those who don't know, there's two official ways to leave the religion. You either get disfellowshipped, meaning you get removed from the church for doing something wrong, or you can disassociate by writing a letter stating that you want to leave the religion. No matter which way you choose, both ways have the same consequences. People have to stop associating with you, they can't talk to you, your family has to limit their interactions with you. Some family members will even just completely not talk to you anymore. So that's why I decided to just disassociate myself and not formally leave. But here I am making videos on the internet, so I don't really know how that's gonna help. But that's me in a nutshell. So let's get into the meat of this video. Why are we here? So looking back, I definitely left this religion because I didn't feel like I fit in the religion. I really always felt like something was missing, and I also felt I'm not good enough, to be honest. There was just a lot of expectations, and I felt like I just wasn't meeting them, and I wasn't good enough for God, I wasn't good enough for the organization. And also I felt like, as a person of color, of African descent, I didn't feel seen. And with the climate of things around the world, there's no way you can just exist and not speak on them or address them or point them out. And I felt so powerless being in a religion where I had to ignore these things. I couldn't really speak on them, and even if I did, I couldn't play a role in trying to change that narrative. And that sparked other things where I realized that, you know what, I can't even partake when it comes to the discourse around climate change, because they believe that the world's going to end in any way and it's going to be transformed. So in the meantime, basically the world can just be destroyed, and that's okay. So for me, it didn't sit well with me. I really was passionate about talking about and learning about climate change and what role I can play in not basically destroying the planet. And I couldn't now really openly and freely have friends that were part of the LGBTQI plus community. I couldn't even, associate myself with such, because if you have to distance yourself from people like that, the religion is very against people who associate or are part of that community. It's things like that that really pushed me out of the religion. And at the time, I just needed anything that would stick so that I could leave. So when I came across the Royal Commission in 2016 and I was reading up on it and I was watching videos and seeing how governing body members of the Jehovah's Witnesses were in court and outrightly lying to protect themselves, I realized right there and then that, you know what, this religion is not for me. How are we here protecting people who have been harming children? How are we even having this conversation right now and having people arguing from different ends of the spectrum? So for me, I was like, no, I can't do this. So I left. And now 5 years later, I find myself here making a video again talking about my experience within this religion and why I left. And I feel like this time around I am definitely more armed, more informed, and ready to tackle it on from my perspective as to why this religion is bad. So that brings me to my topic for today as to why the Jehovah's Witnesses are anti-black, Maibuye Africa, and let us recenter to who we are and where we thrive. So I think let's start off with a short lesson on what is actually decoloniality. Decoloniality is the critique of colonial power relations that places emphasis on coloniality. Decoloniality refers to the efforts at rehumanizing the world, to breaking hierarchies that dehumanize subjects and communities and that destroy nature, to the production of counter-discourses, counter-knowledges, counter-creative acts, and counter-practices that seek to dismantle coloniality and to open up multiple other forms of being in the world. The fundamental purpose of decoloniality is to expose the hidden structures that maintain colonial unequal relations that inform the structures of the modern colonial world, and to remind us that these practices are not just of the past but still taking place in modern times. Coloniality is the continuation of colonialism. Anything that continues to pillage, extort, and abuse those outside or not from the West is the continuation of colonialism, and this takes form in many different ways today. Coloniality is colonization in the absence of colonial administration. Now that we have unpacked what decoloniality and coloniality are, how do we utilize these teachings or these principles to change all of the things that are happening around us? And when I refer to things happening around us, I mean in terms of colonization. Firstly, let's just get onto the same level and understand, and I just hope we all have the same understanding here, that decoloniality is looking to basically rectify what colonization has done. However, colonization still persists today, but obviously is not the same as hundreds of years ago, but rather it continues through coloniality. So how do we change this? Like, as normal everyday people, how do we actually try to bring a change within our own society or our own community? So this is where the principles of decoloniality actually fit in. And these principles are decoloniality of knowledge, decoloniality of power, and decoloniality of being. Decolonizing knowledge means freeing knowledge from colonial structures that define what knowledge actually is. This includes social, political, economic, architectural, literary, or religious phenomenon with implications for questions of sex, gender, and class. Coloniality of power consists of control of the economy, authority, gender, and subjectivity. Decolonizing power is about understanding how power operates within colonial structures and how it is used to oppress and marginalize the oppressed. Lastly, decoloniality of being explores the notion of freeing oneself from colonial attitudes and mindsets to liberate oneself from ignorance and the fear of knowing and knowing deeply. To decolonize our knowledge, power, and being, we need to implement the following principles. Firstly, community. Community is about taking the time to learn about others and what they actually go through. It is about being part of the real world and still part of a community that is fighting against injustices. This then leads to change. Change in your formation, perspective, growth, and going further. It propels you to take action through that change. But what change? A change in what you see as the problem. what you think is wrong. That is the beauty of decoloniality. There is no prescribed answer or end point. You have to utilize your creativity to answer questions with new solutions, new perspectives, and new ideas based on your analysis and your locality and your community. So now that we understand what all of these principles are, where do the Jehovah's Witnesses actually fit in? Where do they fit in within all of this narrative? So when you go through studies and you actually do research, you will actually stumble across or find out that 52% of members of the Jehovah's Witnesses in America are of African descent or Black Americans. So it's clear to see that the organization has truly recruited a lot of people of African descent or people who identify as Black. However, in the 1800s, 1887, Black people were not even on the radar for the Jehovah's Witnesses. They were not looking to recruit any of them into the organization. Rutherford actually said, no, we don't want Black people, until they realized that they are actually sitting on a gold mine due to slavery and how slave masters used Christianity to control slaves, to have them work harder and get free labor. So the Jehovah's Witnesses realized that, oh, here's an opportunity. And through the utilization of the principles of decoloniality, but through coloniality or colonialism, they were able to actually get more people into the organization. So let me expound on that. Let's start with decolonization, or in this instance, coloniality of knowledge. So what the Jehovah's Witnesses actually did is they noticed that a lot of Black people are struggling. They're going through slavery. It's a difficult time for them. And yes, some were free, but mentally they weren't really free. Of course, they still have the trauma of slavery, and you're a person of color in America. So the Jehovah's Witnesses saw that as an opportunity to grow their membership. They tapped into the struggles of Black people and actually spoke to them at a level of understanding. So they did extensive research to find out actually what struggles or what issues are Black people facing in America right now. So here's some of the stuff that Jehovah's Witnesses actually said within their publications about recruiting Black people into the organization. Even in the infamous slave trade, which brought thousands of Black men from Africa to this favored land, was, as viewed in the light of God's overruling providence, a blessing in disguise. For the Black man in America has enjoyed advantages of civilization here that he would have never have known in his native land. They also went on to say this: the more we think of this, the more it appeals to us. In nearly every city of our land, there are colored people whose parents were brought from Africa as slaves, and who in the Lord's providence are now free and able to speak and read the English language. Many of them give evidence of deep religious sentiment and fervency of spirit. Why is not the truth for these? Perhaps the Lord allowed us to overlook them to some extent in the past. Why may we now make a general movement all along the line for their aid? And then here's one more thing they also said. Even the infamous slave trade, which brought thousands of Black men from Africa to this favored land, was viewed in the light of God's overruling providence as a blessing in disguise. So not only did these people not see an opportunity to recruit more people within the religion, but they saw slavery as a blessing. A blessing for what? So starting in 1887, as mentioned, the Jehovah's Witnesses realized that other religious organizations or groups were making a killing by recruiting more Black people into their organizations. Through their missionary escapades and going through Africa, they were able to get Christianity to new countries, new lands in Africa. And then the Jehovah's Witnesses saw the success and realized that, you know what, we're busy here segregating these people. Why we can actually grow our organization, make more money. So let us get them in. Hence them saying, hey, maybe slavery was an opportunity here because of we don't have to go to Africa. We can start right here in our homeland where there's so many Africans who were slaves and they're free now, they're able to read the English language, you know, they've been exposed to civilization. How can we get these people into our organization? So what the organization then did is they went onto this marketing campaign of recruiting black people into the Jehovah's Witness organization. So the Jehovah's Witnesses actually realized that if they speak to black people and they make promises that the government is not even promising them, they could actually recruit more people within the organization. So they started talking to them about a new paradise, a new earth, or at that point just God's kingdom, because I mean, let's not forget how many times they got it wrong about when the world was ending. So at that point, what were they even saying? But that promise of a life of no more crying, no more death, no more pain, for black people, of course, this was exciting. This was something they never heard of, you know. And here's an opportunity where if you just worked hard for this organization and you were pleasing to God, you could now be in a society where no one is trying to harm you, no one is trying to exploit you, no one has the right to take you from your homeland to another land. This was so appealing to the this was so appealing to black people, and the Jehovah's Witnesses realized this gap in the market. They just tapped into it. They used their pamphlets, their knowledge, to just get black people to join the organization. And in doing this, what they did is they actually helped change the narrative of black people to entice them. So when the governments were talking about how black people are dangerous, they need to be arrested, all of these uprisings, they were doing the opposite. They were portraying a healthy black family unit, a family that is under the leadership of a strong black man and a black woman who's caring for their children, and children that are actually obedient and listening to their parents. So this story was easily accepted by the black community and hence enticed many to join the religion. However, what they also did with this knowledge, or the knowledge that they were imparting, is that they were also changing the narrative of how black people were to view themselves. So there's a story, for example, a testimonial, and we all know these. If you're a Jehovah's Witness, you know that they love testimonials. But this is actually the first testimonial of a black man. The image is of high quality, crisp, clean, and it talks about Small I, who was a Rastafarian, and he came across the Jehovah's Witnesses who came to his house. And at that point, he had long hair, he was smoking marijuana, he had just been charged for 5 counts, I think. Yeah, he was charged for like 5 counts. And this man was just basically going on a downhill slope until the Jehovah's Witnesses came and saved him. And with them sharing their story of how there's a new world that awaits him, he realized that, oh, this is the one true religion, and he joined. And by joining, what did he do? He cleaned up his act and cut his hair and was a clean man who God was willing to accept now, and he was able to join the Jehovah's Witness organization. But what you don't realize here is, or what many of us overlooked, or our parents overlooked, or people who joined the religion, what has been overlooked here is that they've been whitewashing us, whitewashing our experiences. That yes, when you are black and you identify like the African man and you do what African people do, whether it's practice Rastafarian, the Rastafarian way of life, or whether you believe in ancestors, all of those things are demonic. And when you carry on believing in all of those things, your life is doomed. You're doomed for a life of crime, a life of being lazy, a life that is not pleasing to God. But if you turn your back and you join this organization, you become pleasing to God. God is willing to accept you. And it's almost like they tricked black people into thinking that you guys went through slavery because of the way you were living as savages in your country. And now that you're here within civilization, you have an opportunity to better yourself. So they basically utilized biographical reconstruction. And this is when you let go of your past, but as you let go of your past, here's this new future or this new idea that you're constructing. And this is what the Jehovah's Witnesses did. They helped African people let go of the past, forget it, it's bad, it's wrong. Here's something new to adopt that's good and better. And that's how they colonized their knowledge. And then they went for power. Power is how they utilized the organizational structure to maintain power within the organization and have people believing that they do have power within the organization, but we actually know that they do not, because the organization is made up of different hierarchies that one can reach, and at the very top, before God, and I think before Jesus, we think, I don't know, but there's the governing body. So there's a governing body that makes all of the rules, all of the changes within the organization, and that's how they've colonized their power. The power has all gone to the governing body. They are the decision makers when it comes to the religion. However, another thing that they did is they also made black people think that governments cannot bring any change to the current issues taking place that affects them. Why did they do this? And how did they do this? So when you read publications and the many of testimonials there's a testimonial, for example, of Sandra, who lives in Nigeria, and her family had racial tensions. So her mom was Igbo and her father, I think, was another religion. I mean, not another religion, but another culture or tribe. And those tribes did not get along. But she explains through one of the testimonials that through prayer and belief, God has helped her understand that people will make mistakes, but she will not be prejudiced, she will not judge other people, and she will just continue to love everyone. But what we don't realize about these testimonials is that they absolve governments of their responsibilities. And it makes black people think that, oh, the government can't fix our problems. There's no point in voting. There's no point in taking part within my community thinking that I can bring a change because of the government's not going to do anything. And that's how they have convinced many people to not vote. Because think about how many black votes were lost in 1993, 1994, when South Africa was having their first elections. Think about all of those black people who didn't vote, who were part of the Jehovah's Witness organization. They almost lost out on a better life, because had it been that their votes were needed for the elections to go in favor of ANC, the ruling party that had their first black president, all of that, had it been their votes required, we would still be under an apartheid regime, and the Jehovah's Witnesses don't care, because of their point is not about liberating people or improving anyone's quality of life. The whole point of the organization is to make more money. So by absolving governments and having people within the religion believe that the government can't do anything and that things will only change in the new system, it basically leaves people who are oppressed feeling paralyzed and having just to turn to religion, having to just turn to prayer for their lives to change, and you feel like you're helpless. And as we've learned through this video already, is that for us to find change, we need to actually take action. Through action is how we bring change. So lastly, they colonized their being, and being is how you see yourself, how you view yourself as a person. And this religion has just convinced millions and millions of people of just how lesser than they are. And the Jehovah's Witnesses have done exactly that. They've corroborated the reality of black people. So they did this by, as mentioned during the colonization of knowledge, is that they spoke about the black issues like no one else was doing at that time. When lynching was taking place, they spoke about it. They detailed the gruesome acts that took place. And imagine you're living in a world where it's almost like you're not acknowledged as a person, and here comes a group of people that say, no, we see you, we see the struggles that you're going through. and we are promising you that things will change. How do people who have gone through slavery not fall for that? We're looking for an outlet. And for the longest of times, I came to this realization that I used to judge a lot of people for being in religion, and I'm like, why would you be in a religion, especially if you're educated and you understand colonization and what it has done? And I realized that no, there's nothing wrong with religion. There's nothing wrong with having an outlet where you've been carrying so much, and here's a spiritual, I don't even want to call it a being, but a spiritual higher power or whatever it is that you believe in. Here it is saying, put your burdens on me, let me help you carry it. How do you not appreciate that? And I've grown such an appreciation now for people who have faith and who are part of a religion that I understand now. I truly understand. And now I also understand how people can be so deeply entrenched into this organization of the Jehovah's Witnesses that leaving is just so hard, because so much of your identity is tied up to this religion, like a lot of it. And they do it very well through different tactics of having people not having friends outside of the religion, or limiting the interactions with friends, co-workers, people who are deemed worldly because of the outside of the religion. And because of just that, people find it difficult to leave. It's very hard. And they speak to like current affairs, what's happening. Like when you're in this religion, you feel so seen, except when you're a woman, of course. No one cares about women. No one. So even in 1988, this is what the Jehovah's Witnesses actually said in a publication, that some have attempted to justify their prejudice by claiming that God cursed the black race. However, no such curse is recorded in the Bible. True, Genesis 9 verse 25 says, "Cursed be Canaan, let him become the lowest slave to his brother." However, that oft-cited verse says nothing whatsoever about skin color. And I was like, wow, that is so beautiful. But then what about the other Bible verses you guys have added on to? What about those? But anyway, the favorable coverage that they represented of black people starting in the 80s and featuring these testimonials that were shot so well, of high quality, and even how they portray the black family unit, like that is so important for black people to actually see themselves in these healthy black family units, where normally when they portrayed on TV or anywhere else, they're always dysfunctional. A dad is doing drugs, a mom is on crack, kids are being neglected, just all of those things that we typically see when we consume media that is heavily whitewashed. Is that the black family unit is quite dysfunctional. So what they did is no, they're going to represent us in a different light, in a different way. But what they were actually doing is they were making us forget our past and telling us, no, this is how you're supposed to live. This is how you're supposed to behave. And we know how this organization really controls how people view themselves, because it's an organization that forces people to all be the same, which goes against decoloniality, because decoloniality is not about dividing people. That is colonization. Colonization is all about us versus them. He, she, them, they, us. All of these categories in life and having to fall into a certain group or not, that is actually all colonization. And when you learn more about African studies and African people, where they come from, you realize that we've been using pronouns. We didn't actually have gender or sex heavily entrenched in our culture, in our traditions. It's only colonization that has brought this over to us, and the misogyny and the patriarchy and all of these things. So you see how colonization has changed us as a nation, as a people, and they utilize this as well, the Jehovah's Witnesses, to get more people within the religion. But through the testimonial that we read from Small I, we learned that no, they actually utilize biographical reconstruction to have us forget who we are and to think or learn that being black is bad, it's wrong. And the more you identify as a typical white middle class family that is decent, you know, very family orientated, then you're unlearning the badness of being black and adopting the goodness of this that is so close to God that you can even be seen as worthy to end up in his kingdom. So that is my short tale of just how we can unlearn colonialism within this religion and move to a place of actually decolonizing ourselves through community, through change, through action, and finally utilizing our creativity, which is talents that we're born with, gifted with already, that are just in us and just trying to just come out, you know. And that is one of the most painful things for me when I really think about just the time wasted within the Jehovah's Witness organization. I used to be the most creative person, I think, and this religion says like, no, you can't be that amazing person, you have to be your own person, you have to be different. But we know what that different own person actually means. It just means adopting the way of life of the Jehovah's Witnesses, being meek, being muted, being diluted, you know. You're always too much, of course, if you choose to be yourself. So I hope you guys were able to learn here how important it is to be yourself and to be comfortable in who you are as a person, because decoloniality is not necessarily about just African people who are black or of color, but it's about who you are as a person and having a voice in this world, because decoloniality is about all of us have something meaningful to give in life, and we are all important no matter what race you are, be it white, black, Asian, whatever. We all are important, we all have something to give, and I hope this video was just sentiments to that we are all just amazing people and we've got something to give to this world. So I hope you all learned something about this video, you learned something about decoloniality, and you leave this video feeling more empowered, more informed about the Jehovah's Witnesses and the type of religion that they actually are, and also confident in whatever decision you make. If you are within the religion or associated to it somehow, I hope this video can give you the courage to say, you know what, maybe this isn't for me, or maybe this is for me actually, and I actually love this religion and I'm okay with this. So yeah, I wasn't really here to change anyone's mind, but I was here just to inform people and teach you more about decoloniality and colonialism and coloniality and how it continues to take place within society right now. So I want to thank you all so much for making the time to watch this, and I hope you learned something. And let's engage with the comment section. Like, let's talk. What video would you like for me to actually create after this? And yeah, I want to thank you all so much once again for watching. I will see you all in the next one. Bye.